On December the 5th, the LA Lakers visited New Jersey Nets. The Nets held a retirement ceremony to honour Kareem Abdul-Jabbar before the game, which was quite bemusing. Earlier the same day, which makes it even more awkward, Kareem signed a contract extension with the Lakers, which took him through to the 1986 season. Nobody knew then he'd go on to play right through until the 89 NBA Finals and was 41 years of age. Now, he scored 20 points and the Lakers won 103-94.
It's almost like burying a person before they die.
A little bit over the top, isn't it?
Slightly jumping the gun.
I always like to say that Michael got to play with me for a year at North Carolina. I think it really helped him.
Spectacular player from the beginning.
You can see right away Jordan was going to be a big-time scorer.
And showed what an impact he was going to have on the league.
This is NB85, celebrating the 30-year anniversary of Michael Jordan's rookie season in the NBA. And now, your hosts, Adam Ryan and Aaron Steen.
Welcome back to episode 12 of NB85. Aaron, how are you, mate?
Adam, back in the Ford recording studios in downtown Upwey, so couldn't be better.
You're committed to the cause, sitting in a car.
NBA News, Notes and Quotes, November 25th through December 9th, 1984.
The next 15-day block of the NBA's 39th season. And just before we get going, mate, I have a quick trivia question for you. I've tried to come up with something which is, I think, may stump you, but we'll see how you go. It's going to be multiple choice, and everybody listening can have a chance to have a crack at this too.
I've at least got a 33% chance of getting it right.
You have indeed. So the question for you is this. This player made his NBA debut in the 84-85 season. He played for well over 10 seasons and led the league in a key statistical category in 1988. Who is he? Now your choices are A, Charles Barkley, B, Michael Cage, or C, Otis Thorpe. Do you want any thinking music?
No, I'm straight into B, Michael Cage.
Congratulations, mate. Well done. It is indeed. In the 88 season, he averaged 13 rebounds per game and was involved in a very epic rebounding title battle with Charles Oakley. This actually was featured, I think, in one of the NBA entertainment videos.
And it was also on NBA Action, one episode.
Oh, there you go. So I just had a flashback to 88.
Yeah.
Oh, nice one. Yeah, so good job, mate. So I believe later on in the episode you might have a trivia question that you want to throw my way.
I do. It's a curly one.
Oh, boy. I went fairly easy on you to start with.
Yeah. No, that was... I'm actually quite disappointed. So
I wanted to start not too difficult, but I'm quite concerned that you're going to throw me under the bus straight away. Anyhow, we'll see how it goes. Let's just get straight into the episode proper, mate.
Yep.
On November the 25th, Seattle were 105-94 winners against the LA Lakers in LA, and that actually snapped Lakers' 7-game win streak. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had 23 points and 14 boards, and for Seattle, Ricky Sobers had 23 points and Tom Chambers had 19. Now, in this game, Magic Johnson actually sat out with a sore knee, which is on the back of the first ever LA-based Clippers versus Lakers game, which took place on November the 24th, and somehow we actually overlooked that in episode 10 of this series.
I'm not sure how that happened.
I don't know.
A very cool little tidbit, Adam.
It is. That's why I thought I'd just throw it in at the start of this episode as if it was planned all along, but unfortunately it wasn't that way. We'll jump ahead to November the 27th, and there was an article entitled Fight Adds Punch to Bulls Forward Battle, and it begins by saying Sidney Green is one raging bull, and then the article details the frustrations that Sidney Green experienced of being the third option behind Steve Johnson and David Greenwood, and it also went on to say that Greenwood erupted during practice Monday at Pacific High School as the Bulls prepared for Tuesday's game against Golden State. Now, Sidney Green had decent playing time during Greenwood's absence through the contract dispute. However, tempers finally boiled over into this practice session and players and coaches actually had to intervene. So that was an interesting little development there that I uncovered during the research for this episode. You could even probably go as far to say that both players were green with envy.
I was actually waiting for my chance to jump in with that pun. Thank you, mate.
No worries, mate. Anytime I can cut your lunch, I'll do it.
Also on November the 27th, Rory Sparrow's jumper with 5 seconds left gave the New York Knicks its 6th straight win, a 97-96 win at home versus the Atlanta Hawks, which would have been nice for the other Knicks fans as they got off to a bit of a slow start that season. Also on the 27th, Larry Bird went for 40 points in a 114-99 win at Dallas, which was Boston's 12th win in 13 games. Alex English, who finished with 28 points, and Fat Lever, one of my favourite players, and yours as well, Adam. He finished with 13 points, 7 rebounds and 16 assists in Denver's 9th win in a row, a 139-110 rout versus the LA Clippers.
Just a standard stat line there from Fat Lever. Just a lazy 13 points, 7 boards, 16 assists, if you don't mind. Incredible that he still gets overlooked to this day. He had a fantastic run there with the Nuggets particularly. Yeah, love his game.
It's almost at the point where there is that much fat love here on the NB85 and In All Annals podcast that Lever is almost overrated.
Yeah, we better pull the handle on Lever, I suppose, mate, and just... I don't know where... I'm not sure where I'm going with that. But yeah, basically, you're correct. Now, on the 27th of November as well, Golden State Warriors were 109-103 winners against the Chicago Bulls. The game was played at Oakland Coliseum Arena in California in front of a crowd of 13,295. That took the Bulls' record to 8-8, so they're 500 on the season. Now, for Chicago, Orlando Woolridge was the top scorer. He had 20 points. Quentin Daly had 18. MJ was held to 13 points, and there's a reason for that I'll get to in just a moment, along with 2 boards and 3 assists, and he had 6 of 10 from the field. For Golden State Warriors, Eric Sleepy Floyd had 25 points and 6 assists. Purvis Short, you'll hear his name a couple of times in this episode too, he had 24 points, 6 rebounds and 4 assists. And Larry Smith, great game from him, double-double, 16 points and 15 boards. Now, the Bulls shot 52% from the field, but they were out-rebounded 53-37 by Golden State. And going into the game, Golden State had lost 7 of its last 8 contests. Jordan's 13 points would be a season low for 85. He came out of the game with 5 minutes and 13 seconds left in the third quarter and did not play another second of the game. And that led to an article on November 29, which was titled, "Fans Can't Stand to See Jordan Sit." Gotta love that wordplay. And it begins, for many in the rare sellout crowd of 13,295, the one-time appearance of the Bulls' charismatic rookie and Olympic hero was the reason they had ventured out to the Coliseum in a driving rainstorm. Their appetites whetted by Jordan's pre-game dunk show, the fans eagerly anticipated more high-altitude thrills from the Bulls star. Later, a crowd chant of "We want Jordan" went up. Lockery took him and the other starters out of the lineup in the third quarter when the Bulls were really struggling. I think they were down by almost 20 points. And then the second unit got back into the game, and yet, for whatever reason, Lockery held out Jordan and he never played again after that, sitting down in the third quarter.
A road crowd chanting, "We want Jordan."
That sums it up.
And Golden State, or Oakland, as a city, was a bit infamous for MJ early on in his career. Apparently, he left with 5:13 left in the third quarter of this game, and we're all pretty familiar with what happened in his next appearance in Oakland in the 85-86 season.
Exactly right. He came down awkwardly and broke his foot in a game at Golden State. I think it was October 1985. He sat out a majority of the 86 season. A couple of tidbits for the fans.
Indeed. On November 28, Ronnie Lester, who was waived on November 16 by the Bulls, was signed as a free agent by the LA Lakers. In 32 games with the Lakers, he'd averaged 2.8 points and 2.5 assists. Atlanta defeated Milwaukee 95-83 at New Orleans, Louisiana. An enormous crowd of 2,172 at the University of New Orleans was on hand. Neek was the high man with 17 points. This was the second in a 12-game home-away-from-home series for the Atlanta Hawks. A very interesting tidbit from this game was that it also resulted in one of the best next-day newspaper headlines following a poorly thought-through in-game promotion. The headline from November 29's Milwaukee Journal reads, "Hawks spicy freebies draw a chilly reception."
Now, this is great. I found this and I was absolutely thrilled to come across it. Hopefully I'm not making too much of it, but basically, to paraphrase the article, the fans got free chili and Mike Fratello got mad. Bear in mind, this is in New Orleans, where Atlanta were playing a 12-game home away from home series, so they're trying to establish a bit of a fan base here. And fans had the chance to redeem their ticket stub for a free chili from a fast food chain if the human highlight film, Dominique Wilkins, had 3 dunks in the game. Now, in the third quarter, with Atlanta handily in front, Fratello chose to sit Neek on the bench, and the fans obviously thought they weren't going to get a chance for him to get his dunks. He'd had 2 to that point, and then with about 3 minutes to go in the game, Milwaukee fought their way back into it, and Neek got to enter the game again, and then he got his third dunk with, I think, 9 seconds to go in the fourth quarter, and then the crowd gave him a standing ovation because they got themselves some free chili. That was quite bizarre. Fratello was quoted as saying after the game, "I don't like that," and then he later apologised to the Bucks on behalf of his team. He then went on to say, "It's Bush League," and I didn't think that they had to keep announcing that if Wilkins dunks the basketball, they'd get free chili. Don claimed that he was unaware of the chili chance. Quite a strange little wrinkle there from an in-game promotion, which has gone horribly wrong, you'd have to say, mate.
If Mike Fratello, who just so happens to be a former guest of the podcast,
He does.
has an issue with a promotion like that, he would not be able to coach in 2014.
No, that's right. Yeah, they promote anything these days. But yeah, this one here obviously ruffled a few feathers and he wasn't overly pleased with it. And probably the first and last time that chili promotion got a go, I'd say.
Ruffled a few of the Hawks' feathers.
I didn't even want to try and explain it, but he picked up on it, so well done.
Also on the 28th of November, Moses Malone's 24 points gave him 15,000 career points in a 122-101 win versus the Indiana Pacers. So a nice milestone for Moses Malone.
And I believe he even talked with reporters in the dressing rooms after the game, which would have been a rarity too.
That's extraordinary.
That's probably more of a milestone. On November 29, Phoenix Suns were 100-91 winners against the Chicago Bulls. It was at Memorial Coliseum in Arizona in front of a crowd of 12,713, and the Bulls dropped to 8-9 on the season. For Chicago, MJ had 22 points, 3 rebounds and 2 assists. He was 9 of 17 from the field. Quentin Daly had 17 points. Orlando Woolridge had 16. Steve Johnson had another solid game, 13 points and 13 boards. And for Phoenix, Larry Nance had 24 points, 15 rebounds and 4 blocks, if you don't mind. And James Edwards, very handy as well, 16 points, 5 rebounds and 3 assists. Now for Chicago, it was their 12th straight loss in Phoenix, which dated back to 1977. And it also marked the first time that the Bulls were sub 500 in the 84-85 season.
James Edwards, a one-time member of the hated bad boy Detroit Pistons, but also a former Chicago Bull legend, a member of the 1996 World Championship team.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, he can be despised as a Piston and he can be adored as a Bull.
As a Bull. On November 30, the Philadelphia 76ers defeated Portland 126-116 in Charles Barkley's first NBA start. Charles finished the game with 16 points and 13 rebounds. Utah defeated the Denver Nuggets 116-97. The Utah Jazz snapped Denver's 9-game win streak and was led by Darryl Griffith and his 24 points. On this same day, the Chicago Bulls won 104-100 over the LA Clippers at Memorial Sports Arena in California in front of a crowd of 14,366 to bring their record back up to 509-9. This is one of the games that we have on DVD and we'll take a more in-depth look at in episode number 13. This was the LA Clippers' 10th loss in 13 games. Great start for the Clippers in LA and was Chicago's 3rd game in 4 days. The Chicago Tribune wrote on December the 1st, Jordan rescues Bulls, desperate shot stuns Clippers. And the article went on to say the super rookie energized 14,366 spectators Friday night in the Memorial Sports Arena with an unbelievable move that led the Bulls to a 104-100 victory over the LA Clippers. Somehow, with amazing grace, Jordan scooped up a shot while heading for a crash landing, barely able to see the basket. 2 points, free throw, ball game. That is awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty eloquently said. That gives a great example of what Jordan did in this game. And A lot of the information that we're chatting about today, mate, will appear in the show notes. So here's the mandatory plug for the show notes, inallairness.com/NB85-12.
The move that the article has mentioned will be featured in episode number 13, along with my standard Bill Hazen impersonation.
I don't doubt that for a second, mate. And I know that in the interim, I'm going to have to search Google to work out how I can actually reinforce this personal recorder I've got here, because I'm just frightened it's not going to withstand what you're going to come out with. But we'll get to that in episode 13.
In the warm-up for this episode, you'll undoubtedly hear a little bit of this me.
Oh, I got flashbacks to a Bugs Bunny cartoon there. Haircut by a barber, I think.
Another one that you're speaking of.
Yeah, there you go.
On this game for the Bulls, Orlando Woolridge finished with 23 points and 6 rebounds. MJ had 20 points, 5 rebounds and 5 assists on 9 for 15 from the field. And Caldwell Jones had a double-double with 11 points and 10 rebounds. For the LA Clippers, Derek Smith was actually excellent in this game, guarded by MJ a lot, especially early on in the game. He got off to a really fast start and finished with 33 points on 12 for 17 from the field. Former Laker, current Clipper, Norm Nixon, 17 points, 6 assists, and Big Red, Bill Walton, 11 points and 8 rebounds.
You make a good point there about Derek Smith, because unfortunately, history will dictate the fact that he was the guy that fouled Jordan on that incredible layup in the closing minute and a half of the game, but overlooked is the fact that he was on fire and had 33 points. Yeah, don't answer, that's fine. December the 1st, mate. December the 1st. Phoenix coach John McLeod racked up career victory 500, and it was a 115-103 home win against the Golden State Warriors. Now, he actually coached 14 seasons in Phoenix, which, I'll be honest, I had no idea he was there for that period of time, before he actually rounded out his career with Dallas and New York, which I was more familiar with. So that was a good little stat there. A couple of milestones we've already mentioned in the first week of this particular recap. And also on December the 1st, Clyde Drexler of the Portland Trailblazers was wheeled from the court on a stretcher after a hard foul from New York's Ken Bannister. Now, as soon as I saw it was Ken Bannister, and I think you were about to go there as well, we talked about him being angry in a previous episode of the series when he played against Jordan and the Bulls. Maybe he still had some of the angry pills in his system. I'm not sure. The Glide had 25 points and was going up for a dunk, which would have given him back-to-back games with career highs before he crashed to the floor. And he ended up with a cut above his eye and bruised his knee. And from what I read in a couple of articles, he was actually knocked out for about 90 seconds. That was a bit of a scary moment there for the Portland fans and NBA in general.
Clyde Drexler actually finished second in the Sixth Man Award in the 1985 season, Adam.
Oh, what a great stat. Yeah, good play, mate.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember who came first, but I know that Clyde came second.
Oh, wow. Probably McHale, maybe?
Yeah, it was Kevin McHale, yes.
Oh,
that wasn't
that's
your
my trivia.
No, that wasn't it, by the way. It's coming at a rate of knots.
Oh, boy.
December 2nd, the Chicago Bulls went to the Forum in California to play the Los Angeles Lakers in front of 17,505 and amazingly extended their record to 10-9 with a 113-112 win over the Los Angeles Lakers.
Pretty cool, hey?
Great win. For the Bulls, Quentin Daly, the quintessential gunner, finished with 28 points. Orlando had 23. Jordan finished with 20 points, 2 rebounds and 3 assists. He shot 7 of 13 from the field. From the LA Lakers, Kareem finished with 32 points. Byron Scott, 18. Magic, 12 points, 7 rebounds and 16 assists.
How good's that from the Magic Man?
This was Chicago's 7th road game in 10 days, which makes the win even more amazing. Orlando hit the would-be winning basket with 14 seconds left in the game. Magic and Kareem each missed shots in the waning moments, which would have given LA the win. Now, a random fact from this game, 3 of the world's most famous MJs, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, and Michael Jackson, were all in LA on the day of this game.
That would have been a thrill for the fans. Yeah, deserve nothing. Now, on December 3rd, mate, there was only one NBA game on the schedule, and it was Phoenix at Seattle. Tom Chambers was ejected from the game for a scuffle, or a fracas is a new favourite word we're going to use. against Suns guard Jay Humphries, and the Sonics won the game 108-96. Wasn't much happening on that date, so that was the only bit of news I could glean from that particular day. On December 4, in the Milwaukee Journal, there's an article which is titled Bucks Considering Action Against Airline. Now, this actually could have had the potential to be quite scary, to be honest, but it refers to a flight that the Bucks had from Chicago to Baltimore on December the 1st, ahead of their upcoming game against the Washington Bullets. And according to the article, a handful of players, most notably Mike Dunleavy, along with coach Don Nelson, were injured when the plane came to an abrupt stop, narrowly avoiding a gasoline truck as it taxied to its arrival gate. So I don't know why I'm even giggling. That's quite serious. I'd never wanted to make light of an incident like this. However, from what I understand, no formal complaint was filed by the team. What I couldn't actually rule out, however, was whether or not the pilot was named Roger Murdoch, a.k.a. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who had a cameo in the movie Airplane in 1980.
Oh, my God.
Have you seen that movie?
I have.
Quite surprising, to say the least, when I came across that article. And I shouldn't make light of it, really, because Don Nelson actually ended up in a neck brace, and he actually missed a couple of games. He had to stay home and recuperate. And I think Mike Dunleavy, in his very next game, perhaps the one at Washington, hurt his back in the first quarter and then had to leave the game as well. And he missed at least a handful of games, if not more as well, based on the fact that they related back to this incident on the tarmac. So quite disturbing.
I thought that when you led with Bucks considering action against airline, it may have been because they flew the team into Baltimore when they were playing in Washington.
That's what it said. It said they were flying it to Baltimore, which is Maryland.
They were at one point in time, of course, the Baltimore Bullets. So
yeah, well, they must have flew into Baltimore back in those days.
The nation's capital didn't have an airport at that point in time, apparently. December 4, the Boston Celtics and their 10-game winning streak came into Detroit and actually lost 104-99 to the Pistons to end that streak. Vinny the Microwave Johnson, 24 points, whilst Larry Bird went for 23 points, 17 rebounds, and 7 assists. Ladies and gentlemen, your reigning MVP. And just across Lake Michigan in Chicago, Illinois, in front of 6,126 people, the Chicago Bulls had a 112-97 victory over the New Jersey Nets to take the Bulls' record on the season to 11-9. For the Bulls, Orlando Woolridge had a then career-high 37 points, including 20 in the third quarter. Quintessential gunner Quinton Daly had 20 points. Michael Jordan, 20 points, 3 rebounds and 6 assists on 7 for 13 from the field. For the New Jersey Nets, Michael Ray Richardson, 22 points, 7 rebounds and 6 assists. Buck Williams, 20 points and 11 rebounds. And one of the great names in NBA history, Otis Birdsong, 19 points and 4 assists.
It is one of the great names, mate.
Darryl Dawkins of New Jersey didn't play in this game. He was actually in hospital at the time. He had played the first 2 games of the season before sitting out with a variety of ailments, including bone chips in his back. He returned to action mid-January in 1985. In this game, the Bulls scored 68 points in the second half.
Yep, that's pretty good efficiency there, if I don't say so myself. And quite a worry, to say the least, the fact that Darryl Dawkins had bone chips in his back and had been in hospital. So clearly he was struggling with a number of different problems that were forcing him to miss numerous games. Now, on December the 5th, the LA Lakers visited New Jersey Nets, and the Nets held a retirement ceremony to honour Kareem Abdul-Jabbar before the game, which was quite bemusing. Earlier the same day, which makes it even more awkward, Kareem signed a contract extension with the Lakers, which took him through to the 1986 season. Nobody knew then he'd go on to play right through until the 89 NBA Finals and was 41 years of age. Now, he scored 20 points in this game I refer to, and the Lakers won 103-94 against the Nets. And there's an article which will be in the show notes. It is entitled Jumping the Gun. And you couldn't have a more appropriately named article given the fact that Kareem played for another 4 or 5 seasons.
It's almost like burying a person before they die.
A little bit over the top, isn't it?
Slightly jumping the gun, as the Milwaukee Journal said.
Yes. Now, on December the 6th, Milwaukee defeated the Detroit Pistons 114-99. And The most relevant information to come from this game was the fact that the team retired Hall of Fame centre Bob Lanier's number 16 in a halftime ceremony. Now, for his career, he averaged fantastic numbers of 20.1 points and 10.1 rebounds. So, well worth the fact to hold a ceremony for him at the halftime break there, mate.
Agreed.
Also on December the 6th, have a listen to this stat line. Akeem Olajuwon scored a then career high of 42 points on 18 of 22 from the field. However, the Rockets lost to Golden State 114 to 113.
How?
How did they lose when he scored 42?
42 points on 18 of 22, and they lose the game.
Miraculous. Now, he wasn't just a scoring machine either. The Dream pulled down 13 boards and had a lazy 5 blocks for good measure. He had 32 points at the half. Ridiculous. Now, the Warriors, little tidbit here, were coached by Johnny Bark, who many listeners would know later became a key member of the Chicago Bulls coaching staff. And as we record this in December of 2014, he's 90 years old. So a shout out to Johnny Bark.
A true Chicago Bulls legend, Adam.
Absolute legend indeed. I think he was an assistant with the team from about 86 or 87 through at least the first three-peat. And then I believe he went to Charlotte and ended up coming back to the Bulls and just had an incredibly decorated career, well over 55, 60 years almost in the league associated with basketball. Just fantastic. On December 7, another article titled NBA's Tough Times Are Over. It basically details the rise in popularity and the success of the league as a whole. So check out the show notes of this episode. There's a good little feature there where it details some of the stats and key figures and information about the league as it was on its rise in the mid-80s.
Adam, this is the point in the podcast where you get a multiple choice NB85 trivia question put your way.
Okay, thank you. Please bring it on. I'm quite concerned and worried, but bring it on.
Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and Moses Malone all finished 1, 2, and 3 respectively in the 85 NBA MVP voting. Who finished 4th? Was it A, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, B, Bernard King, or C, Terry Cummings?
Wow. Well, start off with C. Terry Cummings is a former podcast. No, I won't even go there. Let me think about that. That's a great question. Wow. I think I'm going to rule out Terry Cummings, although he had some fantastic seasons in the mid-80s. Kareem at this point was apparently retired, according to the New Jersey Nets. So true.
It's a pretty good effort
That's
to be
true.
in the MVP consideration as a retired player.
So there was Cummings, Kareem, and who was B?
Bernard King.
Bernard King, because he had a fantastic...
the NBA scoring leader of the season.
I'm going to go with Kareem.
You are correct.
Oh, my credibility remains intact, at least for this episode.
Good get, son. Good get.
I was very nervous, to be honest. But anyhow, that's great. I hope that was mildly entertaining to those that are still awake.
A gripping podcast.
It is.
And just for argument's sake, the top 10 in the MVP that season went like this. Mm-hmm. Bird, Magic, Moses, Kareem, Terry Cummings came 5th.
Yeah, right.
Rookie Michael Jordan came 6th. Bernard King, Sidney Moncrief, Isaiah Thomas, and Ralph Sampson rounded out the top 10.
Goes without saying, but boy, there's some great players there.
Back to the 1985 NBA season.
We've derailed ourselves here.
Yes. On December 7th, the Chicago Bulls had a 95-93 win over the New York Knickerbockers in Chicago Stadium, Illinois.
We're contractually obligated to say Knickerbocker at least once an episode from now on.
I think if you hear any audio from Knicks games from the 60s or 70s, maybe even the 80s, I think that they're actually called Knickerbockers more than what they are called Knicks.
A very good point. So I think aforementioned is one that cops are hiding. Phenomenal is what I love to say. Knickerbocker is now one that will enter the vernacular, and we'll see where we go from there.
An NB85 staple.
Mm-hmm.
Not Staples Center, just staple.
No, just get back to this forum, mate. Keep going.
Anyway, Chicago 95-93 over the Knicks at Chicago Stadium in front of 8,022 very, very lucky fans.
Can I just stop you for a second? Yeah. I'm still staggered at this crowd number being so significantly low for a majority of their games, except against the blockbuster drawing crowds that visit Chicago. There are some absolutely woeful attendances, and you're spot on by saying how lucky these fans are that were in attendance in the formative years of Jordan's pro career.
Well, we spoke to Sam Smith back in episode 7 of this podcast series, and I'm also lucky enough to be reading his book, There Is No Next, not right now because obviously I'm doing the podcast, but in the midst of reading it now, and he's mentioned in the book that I think Chicago fans were a bit used to seeing these, great young players come to the Bulls and then fizzle away. So they may have been in awe about Jordan and the way that he played, but I guess that they were a bit mentally scarred by the draft picks of seasons past.
You can't argue with that.
This win at the stadium sent the Bulls to 12-9 on the season. Michael Jordan sank a 20-footer with 5 seconds left in the game to put the Bulls up. Rory Sparrow of the Knicks missed a three-pointer at the buzzer. The Knicks were down by as many as 15 in the third quarter. I guess this would register as MJ's second game winner of his young NBA career.
You'd have to class that as his next one, following the one against Indiana a few weeks prior.
Orlando Woolridge had 23 points on the game. Quentin Daly, 22 points. Jordan, 21, 2 rebounds and 3 assists. The trio in the scoring column of Woolridge, Daly and Jordan was a standard one, wasn't it?
It was. And Quentin Daly had popped up various times during this season. We've already mentioned some of his breakout games he had, but just a really great player on a certain night, and then other nights he'd be a lot quieter, but he might, get a number of assists or whatever else. But he could really have some really high-scoring performances, and as a trio, they were definitely great on the offensive end.
Jordan went 8 for 16 from the field in this game. Steve Johnson was also a nice compliment to these guys with 11 points and 10 rebounds. For the New York Knicks, Lewis Orr had 23 points and 8 rebounds. Pat Cummings, 20 points. And future world champion Chicago Bull Trent Tucker, 16 points.
Any chance that we have to mention future Bulls? We make the most of it.
And as you can hear by the high scorers for the Knicks, no Bernard King for this game for New York, who was then a leading scorer in the NBA with 31.9 points per game. He missed his 5th straight game with this one with a pulled groin muscle. The Knicks were struggling with a 1-6 record without Bernard following this game.
Awkward silence. Keep going.
Back-to-back games for the Bulls as they defeated the Dallas Mavericks 99-97 at the stadium in front of a good crowd of 13,167 to put them at 13-9 on the season. This was the Bulls' 5th straight win. So the season was a season of runs for the Bulls. They started off the season absolutely fantastically, then had a bit of a lull as their record came back to the 500 mark, but then on this win against Dallas, they peeled off their 5th straight win. For the Bulls, Orlando Woolridge, again, 30 points and 7 rebounds. MJ had 20 points, 7 rebounds and 2 assists. Steve Johnson, again, with another great game. Horace Grant, 2.0, 17 points and 9 rebounds. Actually, it's probably Horace Grant 1.0 because he played before Horace. But anyway.
That's a good point.
And Ennis Watley, 6 points and 12 assists. Chicago native Mark Aguirre, 24 points and 6 rebounds for the Mavericks. Jay Vincent, a former teammate of Magic Johnson at Michigan State, 23 points and 13 rebounds. And Brad Davis, 14 points, 5 rebounds and 9 assists. Brad Davis being a player who has his jersey retired by the Dallas Mavericks.
And also rocked one of the great mullets of the 1980s.
And Mustaka as well.
He did too. He had it going on front and back. I'm glad that you brought up the Bulls' streaks of wins and losses in the early season of 84-85. They had a 4-game win streak early on. Then they also went on a 4-game losing streak straight after. Then they lost another 3 in a row before winning 5 straight, which brings us to the end of this current span of games that we're talking about up to December the 9th of 84, mate. So to say that their form was up and down like a yo-yo would be actually pretty accurate.
One of the trademarks of an inconsistent young team.
On December 9, Houston guard John Lucas was placed on indefinite leave of absence by the Rockets after traces of cocaine were found in his system following a mandatory drug test. He was Houston's starting point guard through their first 21 games of the season. He returned to the court in late February of 85 and would play through until the 1990 season, even though the article said that he was calling it quits. My most fond memories of him are actually when he was coaching the San Antonio Spurs.
San Antonio. Yeah, same. Like, I actually hadn't realised that he played through until 1990 because he became head coach of San Antonio for the 1992 season. Was it 92? Yeah, 92.
Having a quick look at the great basketball reference website as we speak. And he played through to 1990. He was 36 when he played his final season, and that was again back with the Rockets after he had a couple of stints. He went to Milwaukee and then Seattle before rounding it out in Houston. And as a coach, began 92-93 season. 1994 was his standout season as a coach. He had 55 wins for the Spurs, which obviously was very good. He had 6 seasons as a coach in the NBA, and he went 173 and 258 for just a tick over 40% win-loss percentage. Finished out in 2003 as coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I remember that season that John Lucas became head coach of San Antonio. He was quite often on NBA action, just through his sideline antics. He was a very excitable man. So he had a pretty good team too in San Antonio at that time. So he had reason to jump around like a crazy man.
To the basket, David!
To the basket, David!
That's better.
The next 5 minutes is this ball game. The next 5 minutes is this ball game.
December the 9th as well. Not sure if this game was actually billed as Larry Legend versus Human highlight film or simply Boston Celtics versus the Atlanta Hawks. Either way, it's a game that must have been arguably one of the best in the 84-85 season. Larry Bird had 48 points and Dominique went for a lazy 47 in a Celtics 128-127 victory. Now, on top of all this, Kevin McHale, who scored 20 points himself, tipped home a missed jumper from Larry Bird at the buzzer to steal the victory in Boston. Doc Rivers had 23 points for the Hawks, but missed 2 crucial free throws with 8 seconds remaining that led to the final play unfolding, and the Chief, Robert Parrish, had 21 points.
I profess to be a pretty big Dominique fan, and I wasn't aware of this game.
I was totally oblivious to it, was stunned to come across it and see such amazing stat lines, and when we get into the next 15-day block, there's a great game involving the Chicago Bulls and the Atlanta Hawks that is a double overtime affair, which I thought I knew about most of the memorable games of Jordan's rookie year, but that was another one that escaped my clutches, and we'll discuss that one in a bit more depth at a future date. December 9th, Kansas City Kings defeated the Utah Jazz 123-120. Now, the game was played in Las Vegas, Nevada, and Adrian Dantley lit up the Kings for 38 points, if you don't mind. I've said if you don't mind too many times, I'll get rid of that. Adrian Dantley lit up... Be serious. Adrian Dantley lit up the Kings for 38 points. This was the Jazz's second of 2 home-away-from-home games that they played in Las Vegas, and the previous season they actually had 11 games in Nevada.
I'd love to know a bit of background about why they played so many games in Vegas, and also why the Atlanta Hawks played 12 home-away-from-home games in New Orleans.
I don't entirely know why that's the case. I guess they're trying to expand their reach a little bit, but then having said that, Kansas City, before they became just the Kansas City Kings, they were also known as the Kansas City Omaha Kings, and they split some games between the two cities as well. So I'm not entirely sure what the background behind those was, but I'm sure an enlightened... Actually, I know who would know. Curtis Harris at Pro Hoops History on Twitter. I'll hit him up and ask him actually what the background behind that was. I'm sure he'll know. Shout out to him. Great website. Have you actually seen his website?
No, I haven't, Adam.
Yeah, definitely check it out. ProHoopsHistory.com. Curtis is a great follow. Okay, let's get into some other details, mate.
Some of the Player of the Week awards that were awarded for this period of time.
Were they? Were Player of the Week awards awarded?
The week of November 25th, Bernard King of the New York Knickerbockers.
There we go.
Loyal listeners of the podcast would have heard episode number 10 of this series where we recap Bernard's exploits during this week, so we don't need to enlighten the fans anymore. The week of December 2nd, Jack Sikma of Seattle played 9 seasons with Seattle and then Milwaukee for his last 5. He finished the week with 22.3 points and 13 rebounds a game averages. And December 9, Orlando Woolridge of the Bulls would win his only Player of the Week award for his entire career. He had a week where he averaged 24.6 points on 56.3% field goals, including the aforementioned high game of 37 on December 4 versus New Jersey.
Love it. In terms of the individual highs, for points, we had Larry Legend of Boston had 48 against the Hawks, as we mentioned on the December 9 game. He was 20 of 32 from the field. Honourable mention goes to Dominique, of course, who had 47, and he was 18 of 31 from the field as well. So what a great game that would be to be able to see highlights of that. The equal high rebounders in this period of time were Jack Sikma and Clark Kellogg, who had 21 apiece. Jack Sikma had his on December the 9th in a game against the Houston Rockets, and Clark Kellogg of Indiana had his on the 27th of November against the Milwaukee Bucks. And last but not least, two players also shared the high assist mark for this period of time. Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas both had 17. Magic had 17 against the 76ers on December 7th, and Isaiah had his against the Denver Nuggets also on the 7th of December. The NBA standings through December the 9th were as follows. The division leaders in the Atlantic, the Boston Celtics, were on fire, 18-2. In the Central, the Milwaukee Bucks and Chicago Bulls were tied at 13-9 apiece. In the Midwest, the Denver Nuggets were off to a great start as well. They were 14-6. In the Pacific, it was the Lakers at 14-9. Now, in the 7 games that we covered through this period of time for Chicago, they went 5-2, and their last 5 had been that win streak that we mentioned earlier. Unfortunately, the Cleveland Cavaliers were a lowly 2-17, so they were off to an absolutely shocking start.
Thank you for coming out with the word shocking.
Yeah, apologies to Cleveland fans, but that's warranted.
How good is it to see 4 divisions?
Yep.
Atlantic, Central, Midwest, and Pacific, Adam? That's how it's meant to be.
I still believe to this day that there only is 4 divisions. That's how deluded I am and living in the past. Anyhow, mate. Oh, there's another mate. Now, just before we wrap things up, mate. Oh, that's mate again. Oh, my goodness. I'm falling off the rails here. Aaron, we're just about to wrap things up. Thanks again for being part of the show. Really appreciate your input and your contributions. Would you like to add anything further before we do end the episode?
You mentioned earlier on the winning and losing streaks that the Bulls were going on in this up and down early start to the season for them, and it really was a season of giddy-ups.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show, and share my web address with your friends and colleagues, inallairness.com. Check out the podcast archive for plenty more episodes with high-profile guests. Follow me on Twitter at inallairness. Please add your like to the show's social hub, facebook.com/inallairness. Join me next time for another edition of the show.